On Central News tonight, a Doctor of Opera, the first for Waikato University. What does one eat when on the ice caps of Greenland? And does it get lonely out there? And are there any concerns about the new housing accord speeding up the consent process too much? Kia ora, welcome to Central News for Wednesday the 22nd of October. I'm Hilary Entwistle. 3 years of hard work and determination has finally paid off for New Zealand opera singer Beverly Pullon, who graduates this month with a Doctor of Musical Arts, the first Waikato graduate to do so. She is also only the second graduate in New Zealand to gain this qualification. She spoke to Anne-Marie recently about the journey.
Well, the journey is always long anyhow when you're doing a doctorate, but my journey had lots more hills and challenges maybe than other people, but anyhow I had quite a few challenges. I'd only 4 months into my doctorate, my research, when suddenly I fell ill. I was in hospital for a couple of months, I had a lot of surgery, I had to take time off. So I took the time off about a year and then I came back again, but it was a little too soon because I still had a lot of pain and I didn't support my voice properly, and then I got vocal nodules, which is another challenge. But anyhow, I overcame these challenges and I still managed to complete it. And of course, I was doing so much performing because there's two sides to this doctorate. You've got to do your performance, about 7 hours of assessed musical performances, plus your doctorate, your thesis. So I was doing so much performing, because you know that's what I love, that I was forgetting to write the thesis. So then I had to take 6 months off of singing to write my thesis, and I had it all there and I'd done a lot on it and it just all came together, and so I finished it. And so it was a little bit challenging at the time.
Well, you've accomplished it, which is just such a fantastic achievement. Tell me about that doctoral research that combined scientific measurement with practical opera.
Well, I was always interested in how the voice worked and what went on when you sang, and how come some people can sing high and some people can sing low, and some people have large vocal ranges and others have small. And so I thought, right, so what is it? So I was at this singing workshop and we were looking at our necks, and the professor was going around the room feeling everybody's thyroid and cricoid cartilages and the space in between called the cricothyroid space, and he said, boy, you've got a small cricothyroid space. And I went, what does that mean? What's the significance? And he goes, well, I don't really know. So I went home and thought, I'm going to do some research. So I did all this research and I came across this article by Ingo Titze, who's a professor of voice and speech in America, very distinguished. He does all this research, and he said it was in this article called 5 Ingredients of a Gifted Singer. And one of them was a wider cricothyroid space could make the difference between a small range and a large vocal range. And I thought, so I thought, this is a good topic. So I went on to do further research about whether the cricothyroid space was actually a limiting factor in singers getting a large vocal range or how high they could sing.
So you're actually a haematology scientist as your day job. Do you believe that that job had an influence on the perhaps choice of research?
Definitely, because when I get blood samples, I get a whole lot of figures and values of all these analytes that I'm testing, and then I look at them all and work out what's wrong with someone. So for me to do a doctorate, I had to do something that had figures and something like that, so that I could put them all together and then work it out. So definitely.
Tell me about the practical aspects of your research. How did you manage to measure the space? So I'm assuming it's not a tape measure down the throat.
No. So I used ultrasound.
Okay.
There had been studies done before that had shown that the ultrasound was a safe way to measure the space, and the space could actually be measured by ultrasound. And a lot of people were doing changes in the space when somebody was singing an interval, and they'd measure the distance between how much it closed. And it was shown that the cricothyroid space decreases when you sing higher and it opens when you sing lower. So we knew that we could easily measure it.
What were the main findings of your research?
Okay, the main findings was that mezzo-sopranos have a significantly larger cricothyroid space than sopranos.
And how is that going to be of benefit to opera singers?
Well, but you see, the next thing you've got to say is that it didn't make any difference to their vocal range. At this point, you can't seem to say that the cricothyroid space is going to make a difference in your vocal range, which is what I was actually looking for. So the difference it's going to make to opera singers is that you are not limited by your anatomy, what you're born with. There are ways that you can sing higher without closing the cricothyroid space. Technique, and that is, it's been scientifically proven that singers do use different ways of singing higher and singing than closing the cricothyroid space. It's a very complex array of all these muscles that work together to actually get you to sing, and so you're not limited by that. You can have ways around it.
Tell me about your supervisors and mentors during your research.
Well, my main supervisor was Professor Mark Stringer, and he was from Otago, from the medical school down there. He was an anatomy expert because they didn't have anyone around here in the Waikato University that had that expertise.
Yeah.
So he was he was wonderful. We met once. We did everything else by email and phone. And then I had Associate Professor Martin Lodge, who's here, who's head of music department here, who does composition. And then, of course, my last supervisor was Dame Malvina Major, who organised my program of what I had to sing and do everything, because half the component is singing. So we had to work out appropriate pieces and operas and things for me to do.
That must have been amazing to work with somebody of her calibre.
It was awesome.
Now, you've mentioned some challenges, but I'm sure there were some highlights for you as well, or you probably wouldn't have kept going.
Highlights? Yeah, I've been trying to think of these highlights. Well, the highlights are, this is an awesome venue to sing in, and we have so many concerts that are available for us to sing in. Every week we have concerts somewhere that we can perform in. So we had so many performance opportunities, and I just enjoyed all the singing that I could do. I mean, that's a highlight. And then again, last couple of weeks ago, I was awarded, I had a lot of the university blues awards, but last week I was awarded a special one called Service to the University, because this year, as well as doing everything else, I have been doing a lot of service. I've been organising a lot of concerts, and I've been taking students to various concerts, and I've been organising a lot of things for the music department, especially our Friday performance hour and things like that. And so that was a real highlight, getting that award on my last year when I'm finishing.
Absolutely. What do you plan to do now? You've finished your research, you've graduated with a doctorate of musical arts. Now what?
Well, I've got lots of plans,
Yeah.
but I'm going to take a rest. I'm a bit worn out at the moment, so I'm going to have a couple of months off, and then I'm going to rethink my goals and set them clearly. At the moment, they're all just little ideas in my head, and I'm not certain which way I'm going to go or what I'm going to do yet.
Still to come, your weather for Thursday, and we find out what the diet is like on the ice caps of Greenland. Welcome back to Central News. On Monday's program, we brought you twin brothers Zach and Josh Lyon, who are dedicating 3 years to crossing the world's 4 largest ice caps. Tonight, we continue our chat with them and find out what their biggest highlight was.
For most probably correct answer would be the whole thing, but for me, I found the biggest sort of highlight for me was just meeting 6 individuals from all over the globe, and then at the start of the expedition, and 27 days later, when we crossed an ice cap together, best of friends, and we got to share lows and highs, and pretty incredible memories.
You mentioned there were 6 of you in the team. Who else makes up the team?
Yep. So we had two Norwegian guys and 1 Danish woman, and we had a Norwegian guide as well. So Northern Hemisphere, and us making up the Southern Hemisphere.
The others were from the Northern Hemisphere. Did you kind of feel like you were the one struggling? You're from little old New Zealand. We don't really get that kind of weather.
Skiing ability sometimes.
Definitely.
Yeah, Norwegians are born on skis, so they are far better at skiers than us. But by the end of it, I think we kind of figured it out. But yeah, that's really the biggest thing, just the skiing ability.
And what was your personal highlight?
Probably similar to Zach's, but obviously when I saw the coast on the other side or land on the other side, and knowing you're a kilometre away from finish, that's probably one of the bigger highlights for me. Knowing you're going to tick off one of your bigger goals you've been working on for a few years, so it's pretty special.
What did you learn from this crossing that's going to put you in good stead for the next part of the expeditions?
Lots. There's a big list. There's a big list that we wrote down when we were in the tent at night. But like Josh sort of alluded to at the start, we're going to have to get a more sort of personalised nutritional sort of plan, a food plan, something that our metabolisms can sort of stand up to, that we don't lose too much more weight. And there's gear changes that we'd do, or gear repairs, so alterations. But there's a long list of things that we've learnt that we had a good idea about, but put in practice is a completely different thing, which is good that we've got that experience behind us, and like you said, will put us in a good position for Antarctica.
You mentioned food, so what was the daily diet like?
So the day would start with 200 grams of oatmeal. It's quite good. It's got lots of sugar, lots of oil, and some milk powder in there. Then you'd move on to your lunch, so throughout the day you'd be stopping for breaks and a lunch break. So you've got your nuts and raisins, your chocolate. We're eating 200 grams of chocolate a day, which is great. Fruits, or dried fruits rather, crackers, salami, cheeses, soup or noodles, alternating days of soup and noodles. And then we'd finish up with the day with some dehydrated dinner or just like backcountry foods. That's really good too. I quite enjoyed that. And then every fifth night, would have some chocolate mousse that would smash out. That was easily the highlight.
Dehydrated food doesn't sound appetising. What was it?
What do we have? We had kind of basically stews, really, dehydrated stews. So lamb stew, game stew, beef stew, cod stew, chicken stew. They were all there. So it's basically stew. So you just add water and you're away. So it's actually quite tasty.
Tell me about the next leg, Antarctica. What's that going to entail?
Even though it's maybe triple the time away, or time on the ice, might be about 70 to 80 days. But yeah, easier. It's more sort of monogamous, where you just monotonous rather. You just walk and keep on walking and walking. It's flat, and you're always going uphill. Greenland was a bit up and down. A little bit more technical with snow conditions. Antarctica should be a lot more uniform and hopefully easier, but we're going to have to contend with the longer duration, which is food and making sure we look after our bodies.
So you'll actually be walking for 80 days?
Literally walk for 80 days. Yeah. The plan is to walk into the South Pole, which should take about 50 days, and then we'll turn around when we get to the pole and kite ski back, which should take around 20 days. And then 5 days either side of that for weather and rest days and stuff like that.
Are you fundraising?
Of course we are, yep. These expeditions aren't that cheap, so always, looking for sponsors. We're fortunate enough to have sponsors for our Greenland League, so Waikato companies Smart Trade, Stainless Design, University of Waikato and Carpet Mill. So they helped us out to get to the ice in Greenland, which was fantastic. And we're going to need some more lovely support for the next few legs as well.
Let's go back to when this all started. How on earth do you come up with the idea to walk the 4 caps?
It was his idea. I didn't get tagged along, but I said I'd come along. But Josh had always wanted to walk to South Pole, and Josh talked to a few people, and it was suggested why not sort of go use Greenland as a training league, or a training run rather. And so we had 2. And we kept on talking to a few people, getting advice, and then from the likes of Peter Hillary and Graham Dingle, and then they sort of said, why not go real big? Why not sort of walk the 4 largest ice caps around the world? And we thought, what a good idea. So that's sort of how it came to be.
South Pole, why was that your dream? Why did you want to walk the South Pole?
I don't know, I think it's just that, I suppose, pristine landscape that's not like anything else you can see here on Earth. So I always wanted to go there, and I thought, why not make a challenge for it, If it's easy, why do it? But if it's hard, definitely do it. So, yeah, there we go. Took Zach along with the ride, and here we are, nearly there.
And if people are watching right now and they've been watching you on your journey of doing these expeditions, what do you want people to take away from this? Do you want to inspire people?
Hopefully. we'd like to show that anybody, we're not people that have got a huge pedigree behind us. We obviously like the outdoors, we've got a passion for the outdoors, but we don't walk across ice caps in our spare time. We didn't know how to ski before we went to Norway or Greenland. So it's, sort of people from, despite their backgrounds, you don't have to be super good at what you wanted to do, but with enough sort of determination, resilience and sort of goal planning, I guess, you can sort of achieve it. I mean, we're living proof that, you can get there eventually. Just takes time, but yeah.
You are two gentlemen from little old Waikato. I can imagine that's not a landscape that we would be used to here. Imagine it would be isolating, and did it ever feel lonely at times?
At times it was. It was good though, you're in your own mind thinking about things. But I know I had Zach all the time actually, didn't get away from him. So unfortunately, but it was always good to have someone bounce off ideas and talk to. But it was also great to be alone as well.
And did you ever feel lonely?
Lonely in a good way. Obviously I missed everyone back home, parents, girlfriend and stuff like that, but it's something else to be alone with your thoughts, nothing else for 10 hours a day, and then do it again the next day and the next day. So in some respects it was refreshing. It's a very, I don't know, it's pristine, both in the environment and in your mind as well, which is a bit hard to explain.
A retreat on the ice.
It's a nice way of putting it. Perfect.
Yeah.
For more information or to find out how to donate, go to 4caps.kiwi or follow the boys on Facebook by searching 4Caps Expedition. Just ahead, what makes a special housing area under the new Housing Accord? Welcome back to Central News. In August this year, a special housing accord was signed off between Central Government and Tauranga City Council. I spoke with Mayor Stuart Crosby to find out what makes the decision to delegate a special housing area.
We're the first council to also have our own local policy attached to a housing accord, and within that our own policy we've indicated a couple of issues. One, we would like a degree of affordable housing to be constructed within the Accords. Now that's not in the main legislation, it's just in our own local one. And also to have a broader mix of housing, because what we do know in Tauranga that our current housing stock is not appropriate for our future demographic. We need a lot more smaller homes, 1 and 2 bedroom homes, and I'm delighted to see that our very first housing accord that's out for consultation now is 1 and 2 bedroom dwellings. So it's really fantastic that the development community have seen there's a market there as well.
Who makes the decision to delegate a special housing area? Is it a collaboration between local and central government?
Yes, it is. It's very much a partnership. So as I said, it's a two-step process, develop the accord and then start populating the accord with various developments. So we'll do the consultation and then we'll take that package to the government to say, what do you think? Are you happy with it? And I'm sure they'll be happy and they'll sign it off, and then the development community and the private sector can get on and create some more homes in our city. And it is only for houses, it's not for commercial or industrial sites.
Are there any concerns around speeding up that process, especially around infrastructure?
Well, we've done a lot of work with regard to infrastructure capacity to make sure that the infrastructure is there, or if it needs to be upgraded, or we need all new infrastructure. And throughout the probably 18 to 20 sites we're looking at, it's a mixture. Most of them have spare capacity already, so it's not an issue. It's simply put a pipe there and plug into it from the boundaries, but some of them will require some upgraded infrastructure or new infrastructure, particularly if it's in the new urban growth areas, where we're also using the Accord as well to speed up the process. So it'll be a mixture of requirements.
Do we already have enough infrastructure to cope with that many more houses?
Yes, we do, and this is an important part of it because the infrastructure is underground and paid for, and sometimes there's a reasonable amount of debt attached to that infrastructure. So the more people that plug into it and start paying the bill, to be frank, it can assist us with our debt as well. So we've worked through all that and we're quite comfortable. One, there's sufficient infrastructure, and two, that'll help, one, increase our rating base and also help reduce our debt.
Will rate increase at or near the rate of inflation actually generate enough income for future capital works to cope with those 1,300 new homes?
No, it doesn't actually. So rates don't pay for growth per se. We have a philosophy that growth should pay for growth. Doesn't quite work, but it's a good stretch target. And so we use debt as a transition instrument to put the lead infrastructure in. And the reality is you can't build a pipeline at 2% a year. You have to build the whole thing. You can't build a reservoir 5%. You have to build the whole thing. And so how we fund that difference is really important. And it's done by a mixture of development contributions and sometimes loan and also sometimes rates. But rates are generally there to run the city, not build the city.
So will development contributions be reassessed?
We're always reassessing the development contributions on a yearly basis, so we match the required infrastructure with the development contributions. With regard to the housing accord sites, we believe that on one hand, again, there'll be some capacity there and the new homes will help pay for the infrastructure that's already there, or some sites don't actually have development contributions if they're in the older parts of the city.
Why Tauranga? Why have we been chosen alongside Auckland?
That's a good question. The government have a formula where they look at average incomes versus average house prices, and if the gap's big, you get a housing accord forced upon you. So Auckland were the first, then Wellington, then us. I think they're negotiating with Hamilton and possibly Queenstown. So we were actually quite resistant initially, but when we stood back and looked at the opportunities, we've decided to use a housing accord in our community's best interest, and not necessarily in some formula, which is only one element of what you should be looking at. In terms of new houses and affordability, you should be looking at a whole raft of issues, not just one metric of income versus the cost of a home.
To find out more information about the Tauranga Housing Accord, visit tauranga.gov.nz. Now let's look at the weather for Thursday. Now for the marine forecast. That is the program for today. If you have something you'd like to share with us, you can get in contact with us via our Facebook page, centralnews.tv, or email us news@tvcentral.co.nz. Tomorrow night, Shoeless Day, and the changes proposed to Hamilton City's rating system. I talk with the Mayor. Until then, I'm Hilary Entwistle, and I hope you have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.